think Ashley's running just a little bit late, so I think we can sort of get started, and when she joins, then we'll sort of just introduce her as well. But perfect. Thanks for everyone for joining. Really, the first sort of like Luke talks WIT event. Introducing myself, I'm the D&I specialist here at Cello. Basically, the department was just built to sort of support companies with diversifying their tech teams and product across engineering in general. And then also supporting startups with sort of putting everything into plan to make sure that it's in place for when they do hit growth. But yeah, that's enough about me, if I'm honest, and Cello. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure.
Go ahead, Daniela.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm Dani. You can call me Dani, please. I'm Brazilian. I work for Localize, and currently I'm in an engineer manager position. Basically, I think I faced a lot of stuff that we will talk about here, but yeah, I let it for the following moments. So go ahead, Christina.
Great, thank you very much, Dani. My name is Christina Busmalis. I am currently actually in between jobs, but my most previous job was working at Google, where I led the life science industry across EMEA. I've been in technology since I was a child, actually. So started very, very young when I was 8 years old, where my dad was a computer teacher, studied computer science at university, and was an IT consultant as a start of my career with Pricewaterhouse. You can probably hear the American accent. That is true. I'm based in Switzerland. I've been here since 1997, actually, and I've had various leadership roles in both technology and business development with Pricewaterhouse, PwC, IBM, and then most recently with Google. And I look forward to the conversation.
Perfect. So I know International Women's Day was last month now, but I was just wondering, did sort of any of your companies, whilst working with them, do much to celebrate it?
Any sequence of how you want us to go? Go ahead again, Dani.
I'm sorry. It's happening a lot. Maybe I have some delay here, but I'm sorry. Yeah, I think this question touched a lot of stuff in my career and how I look into companies I work for. Because Localize is a company founded by 3 women, and I wouldn't expect anything different from them. It would be really weird if a company founded by 3 women didn't organize anything about International Women's Day. But we actually talked more about International Women Month there, and we spent the entire month with this thing on the spot. We organized some talks about female founders companies. We also did some kind of internal campaigns with women and allies to embrace equity. We had some time to just talk and have fun, but I'd say that I had mixed feelings about this day. My first thought is it's really important because I like to celebrate. To be honest, I like to think about things that are happening. I like to reflect about the things we suffer in this field and understand how I can change it and how we can work together to make it really different from the next people that will join. So for me, it's not just about celebrating, it's more about fighting. For me, it's a month that things are easier because the world, we are on the spot because there's this day and the world's looking at us all the time. So it's easier to get people's attention. It's easier to talk more about the subject and make people reflect about it. But I hate the fact that we still need this day and we are in 2023. And it's crazy that we need a day in a year to reflect about this stuff. And to be honest, it makes me sad a little bit. And to be honest, I care more about what companies do the other 11 months on the year than this month. I really think it's the important stuff. And just to give you an example of the things I found at Localize, I was searching something on our Slack channel another day, and I saw that a colleague with now we are on the same team, but we weren't before. He shared a book about what women face in a world shaped for men. And I love that. It wasn't International Women's Day or month, it was before. I love that because I thought he's a male, he's a guy, and he's recommending a book that he actually read and he liked it. And he's sharing it. He is supporting us in some way. So these are the nice things. I really appreciate when people think about not just a day and more than it.
So thank you, Danny. I mean, from my perspective, it's interesting you brought up the fact of we shouldn't just be celebrating that day, but and I don't disagree with that at all. I think at Google there were obviously a lot of posts that went out around International Women's Day, but one thing I want to call out was a celebration that was around the I Am Remarkable movement. And I don't know if you're familiar with hashtag I Am Remarkable, but it's a program that was started I think about 9 years ago now with people within Google that wanted to empower people that are underrepresented groups. You could say females, you could say people of different colors or backgrounds, but to really challenge that social perception of self-promotion. If you're familiar with the imposter syndrome, that's a linkage to that as well. And I actually, so the day was about so the I Am Remarkable initiative started years ago within Google, and then they actually brought it to their clients and their customers. And now there's programs across many organizations, hundreds of organizations running this internally, as well as maybe running it at schools. And I wanted to call out that I was sponsoring that within the organization, within my team. And so I ran one of these workshops for my team. There's around 30 people in my organization, and about 70% male, 30% female. So more male dominated, not I mean, as expected, I guess, if you're working in the tech industry. But it's a session where you learn about tips and tricks of how people are being perceived, their unconscious bias, all those different things. But then you spend time about basically saying, I am remarkable, thinking about it. I am remarkable for, and I am remarkable because, and you give examples and you write them down on, what you can share them if you want, but you can, write them down. So we did that as a team. And what was interesting there, and this really links very nice to what you were saying, Danny, is that we then had the opportunity to share, and everybody shared. They didn't have to. It's by choice, right? You're comfortable to share. And it was after 2 days of a team bonding session anyways, but it was a very emotional session. And the more emotional people were actually the males more than the females, which was surprising, right? So that people actually was able to open up and feel I'm remarkable because of this. And it wasn't, some people talked about work, some people talked about personal, but I think that's bringing out that self-promotion aspect is very important, and something that you can tie and say it's females, but actually it goes beyond the female side. So International Women's Day, agree, it's a day in the year, but I think it's important to pause and think about what's happened and what benefits are happening, and just like you maybe celebrate a different day of the year for Christmas or Easter or something, but we are on a journey, and I think we'll talk about that as we go on today.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the point of sort of this platform is to very much, even the term women in tech is not something I'm really a fan of. I think it should just be like engineers in tech in general. I think the fact that we've got a term for women in tech is something that we almost need to get rid of in that sense. So it's full inclusive. It's just engineers in technology, really. But I know you mentioned it at the start with your intro, Christina, about sort of studying computer science. What was your sort of original stigma around sort of joining and sort of getting into technology?
Yeah, and again, I started very young. So I think I was around 8 years old or 7 or 8 when my father, again, was a math teacher at a high school, but he also taught computers. This is back in the early 80s. So I'm showing my age a little bit here. But and he would come home during the breaks. So during the summer holidays, during winter holidays, and bring home one of the computers. So, it started off with these tape-based computers, then it was a Mac, it was different ones as I grew up. But it was something that I just got excited about. First, you think it's a toy, so you can play with it. That's fine. There's games that were there, but also it was something you could learn with. And I spent lots of time just really getting into technology and programming. And, at school, we had programming already, at a very young age in the US. So it was something that I was very passionate about. I didn't really think about the gender aspect. It was boys or girls, right? It was just, yes, maybe I was one of the only girls doing it, but it felt very natural. But I was reflecting back on this recently, and interestingly, when I decided to go to, preparing to go to university and applying to various schools or various universities, there was one engineering university that really wanted me to come to them. A, I was female. B, I was being recruited for basketball, and it was a good engineering program, but I didn't want to go there. And I don't, it's now 30 years later, it's like, why did I not want to go there? I didn't want to be pigeonholed to do engineering, which is kind of funny because that's what I was doing most of my younger years. And so I went to a more like a different university that was in New York State, that was across different areas of focus. And I actually had a tag liberal arts, which I think back, what does liberal arts even mean now? But that was the tag of what I was focusing on. But within the first semester, by the beginning of second semester, I changed my major to be computer science because it's what I like to do. It's what I was having fun doing. And that just continued my career as I went forward. And I think it brought, to the advantage, again, back in the 90s, there weren't many women or even men for that matter in computer science, right? So it was still a hot brewing skill out there. And it very, very, I wouldn't say easy to get jobs, but it was, being a female, communicating very well, having, very strong background in technology, it was actually relatively easy to get many job opportunities that you can choose from out of university. Things have changed, obviously, over the last couple of decades, but that's how I started my career. It was very much, I guess I have to thank my dad for part of it, and just something that I found very passionate about, of, being able to solve something very young. It was at that stage a line on a screen, which I know obviously nowadays means nothing, but back then you had to make a lot of coding to do just a simple line on a screen, and growing from there.
Perfect. Just one quick question about that. Of course, we sort of your dad joining it, your dad's involvement. Sorry, but sort of when joining the courses, were they predominantly male?
Absolutely, all through my education as a child, as well as when I was in university. It was very much a male dominated. I don't remember the statistics, but I think out of, I think it was 80 or 90% back then, something of that high number in university back then. But it didn't, and it's again, it didn't bother me. I didn't feel like I was excluded because I was female. I didn't feel like I also had to change the way I was to fit into the male organization. I know, and maybe we talk a bit about, I mean, again, that was growing up in the US, which is a bit different. I see a totally different scenario now with my daughters growing up in Switzerland, which we can talk about in a bit.
And Daniela, or Danny, sorry, what sparked your interest in sort of technology?
Before jumping to that, I think it's really interesting to hear you, Christina, because it's interesting how different cultures deal completely differently with the same stuff. I think the things that I also started a long time ago, but probably I can't remember really well what impacted me most to jump in technology. But I think there are three things. that I started to interact with. First was software, Photoshop. Second was the internet itself. And third, my first programming language, Clipper. Probably anyone, just a few people know about what is it. Photoshop was the first software that made me interested in something. Oh, that's really nice. Look what I can do here. And at that time, there were no basic features like layers or something like that. So it was really difficult to manage. Second, then I had these mixed feelings about internet because, you know, at that point was like, it was so slow and I hated that. And there were that noise from modems in dial-up connection that, oh, it's stressful. And then was when I were able to work and be able to buy my first computer and San Angel come out with the DSL connections, I start to enjoy it. I really love it. And in Brazil, we had this kind of high school that you can join together with a technical course. It's like doing the high school with an specialization or something like that. And I choose to go into technology. And I had my first touch with programming language logic and things like that. And I think it was 2 seconds after my first line of code that I knew I need to do it. It's my thing. I need to code. I love to code. And this is the thing that I want to in my entire life.
It sounds like in the UK, for example, I don't think technology in general's pushed that much. I think it's starting more now with like my sisters in school. It was pushed a little bit more, but never pushed as much when I was in school. So yeah, I think we're coming on leaps and bounds. That's for sure. But one step at a time, I think. But sort of joining companies as well. Do you find sort of it's a little bit difficult as sort of a woman to join sort of companies that are sort of mainly male dominated?
Yes, a lot. I don't think it starts only on the job market, but I felt it in school. I felt that I was judged less smarter than boys because I was a girl. I heard a lot of times that tech is not for women, you should do something else. But fortunately, I had a mother who raised me to be strong. And she told me, you can do everything. You can do that. If you want to do it, you will do it. And I'm pretty sure that you will succeed. So when people told me that I can't do something, I just were more motivated to show them I can do whatever I want because you can tell me that I can't do anything. It's my right. It's my choice. I'm a person and I have my wishes. And when I jumped into my first job or my first jobs as a developer, I tried to be one of the guys. I tried to. I think I was the only woman there, and I felt that if my behavior were standard women behavior, a stereotyped women behavior, I would be felt leave outside. They would left me outside. So I tried to be one of them. And after some time, I realized that I wasn't. No matter how much effort I could put into it, I would never be one of them. And there were this behavior that I saw a lot of times, mostly in fact that I feel that maybe women should have the same, or at least we should support better each other. Because men often help each other and they have their peers. And it doesn't matter. And I felt a lot of time, it doesn't matter if I was better. They help them, they help each other. And I saw it happen a lot of times with me and with other colleagues, other female colleagues. And something that isn't good, it isn't nice, because besides being a woman in tech, I'm also from a part of the country that there's a lot of assumptions people have from people from that region. So when I moved to the south and I started to find a job as a developer, when I told them, because I moved a lot of time during my childhood, like when I told them I came from this place, oh, the interview ended. Like, you were a woman, you were from there, so you shouldn't be smart, you shouldn't be good enough. But when I told them I'm here, I'm from here, and I'm not jumping this subject, then I had the opportunity to talk more about my skills, about my experience, about myself. So if it's not wrong, I don't know what is it.
Those are yeah, it's fair. I mean, it's interesting, right? The perspective that you had, not just from being female, but from, you know, where you're from, right? So those two things, those two biases are not helping the situation. I think it, you know, from my side, again, I saw again my childhood and up until I was 24 was in the U.S. and then I moved to Switzerland and I haven't returned. Well, I visited, but I've stayed in Europe the rest of my life, and it's a difference there, right? So I think when I was in the U.S. and I started working with Pricewaterhouse at university, our class of the people that started at the same time, because there's a lot of people being ramped up at the same time, was a good 50-50 split. So 50 women, 50 men. Majority of the people, again, in consulting then were not maybe engineering or computer science, but they're being groomed to become into that space, right? So I was probably far advanced of most people. I definitely was far advanced of most people anyways, but we didn't have that sort of, I mean, there was not a gender thing, right? And I think in most clients, it was a good mix again of male and female. I think where things changed is when I moved to Switzerland. So I moved to Switzerland, was supposed to be a 2-year assignment, the typical story, right? You never leave. But I joined a team there to help basically develop a portfolio management system that they were selling to private banks across Switzerland and in the world for that matter. And I joined a team of 25 men. So I was the only woman. And with 25 men, and not only was it 25 men, but it was 25 Swiss men. And here I am, this American. I came with my boss, so the boss was also an American gentleman. But it was a very interesting perspective for me because, like you said, you had to fit in. I had to fit in both culturally, both from a gender perspective, and you know, and all these men were older than me, but many of them were less. I was more senior than most of them because, again, you graduate early in the U.S., you start working. Switzerland, you graduate later, so they were more junior from a skill and experience perspective. So I think that was probably the first time I, you know, had really questioned, you know, here I am, a female in a very male-dominated team, and so I had to really try to fit in. I did to an extent, but I tried to be myself. I also tried to make sure I had, because I went on my own, friends, you know, that I could be friends with outside of work and inside of work, you know, trying to find, you know, different ways of working on that side. So I think that's, you know, that's been interesting in I would say for the rest of my career, since being in Switzerland and I worked many years in the UK as well. It's always been more men than women, always, right? In my team, I think I've had over my, you know, my 30-year career, I've had 2 female bosses, and the rest have all been male. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. I wouldn't say that my 2 female bosses were the best bosses I ever had either. So I think promoting women, you know, how do you promote each other is something that needs to be worked on from that side. But having the right mentors as you go forward. And I think the last thing I want to call out is I've always had that question of, you know, oh, how did you get into technology? Well, why are you asking me that and not asking the guy at the desk next to me? Right. So why is it special that I get into technology, but that next person didn't get into technology? But I probably had more questions in Switzerland around being a female and working in general. And I think that's, again, the country perspective of maturity. You know, when I have twin daughters who are 11 years old, it was immediate, you know, oh, are you going back full time? What about your children? Who's going to take care of your children? Now, no one asked my husband that question. Only I was asked that question, right? So I think there's a stigma there that goes beyond just STEM. You know, it's for me, it's a big stigma, and it's a big issue over in certain countries, and that need to change about, you know, the opportunities that females should get. Now, I think STEM is a great opportunity, and I'm pushing my daughters into that area, you know, gently. They can do what they want, but I'm trying to give them the opportunity to see what STEM is about, because I think there's great opportunity there. I think from a career perspective, there's great stuff that can come out of there, and you can have a great education, whether you're male or female, right? So that's more the push of going in there. But I think the work has to start in the schools. And I know you probably agree on that, Danny, of how do you get that started early in the career versus, you know, later when we're already in jobs of getting people excited about technology.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I think I agree with you that with this last point that it starts with education. I also think that it should start earlier with the kids as possible, probably at home, and then the schools need to just forward and keep them in this situation. But talking about my experience, I don't think I had a lot of safe environment, neither in school, university, or job. I think when I was in high school specifically, I felt judged a lot of times. But when I was in university, things got worse. I suffered sexual harassment from teachers and colleagues. The same happened in some jobs. And I saw my peers stealing my ideas and taking them as theirs. There's a lot of stuff that happens. And I think depending on where you are, depending on the culture you are part of, things can be worse or things can be better.
Yeah.
But things are there. The situations are there. It happens. It happens all the time. Sometimes today, I would say that it's hard to look to myself 20 years ago, maybe a little bit more when I started working on this field, and say something, okay, oh, things are not good right now, because I have this perspective of the person who suffered a lot of stuff. And so now things are really easy for me. I can navigate in this field very, very comfortable because I know what I can do. But I think it's about also listen to the women that are joining today, because it doesn't matter if I face all this stuff. I hope they don't need to suffer the same. I hope things will be easier for them. And it's not only because I suffered more, because I'm pretty sure there are more women that suffered more than me, for sure. There's no question about that. I don't think it's about who suffered more. I think it's about how we can change it, how we can make things better. And looking at this perspective, I think we that are in a senior position or had a lot of experience in this field, we should think more about support the new women in the field and understand that their struggles are real struggles, even if they are easy for us, even if they look easy for us, even if we had difficult or maybe not too difficult experience, because they struggle with some stuff. And I think we need to be empathetic about this stuff and put ourselves in their shoes and then we can learn, and then we can improve, and then we can help, and then we can put a lot of effort on changing things. It's at least is what I try to do. On the, I don't know, past 10 years, maybe I'm really involved with mentoring women specifically. I think men have a lot of opportunities. They can go through them. They can find another mentor or something else to help them. But I focus on helping women, on mentoring in their careers as a developers, as a leadership positions, and also in helping in technical events, focus on giving opportunity to women, and a lot of stuff related to that, because I feel that I'm part of it, and I really don't want anyone else suffer the things I suffered.
Well said.
Oh,
Luke, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. 100%. I totally agree. I don't think it should happen to anyone, especially sort of getting into a career. Have you seen sort of any sort of changes and progression as well, sort of looking from where you started to where you are now? What would you say sort of that the progression has been?
I'll take a quick stab, and then Danny, please jump in. I think things are progressing, just not at a pace that we need, right? Again, if you look, I'll give an example. In Switzerland here, there's most companies have quotas anyways, right? That's not something new of hiring females or hiring people of color or hiring. So there are quotas. Some people don't agree with them. I think it's okay to have quotas until you get to a point that seems fair. But I recently learned of a quota at one of the companies that are based on referrals. So usually when you refer someone, you get money potentially if they hire them, right? And there's actually now you get more money if they hire a woman than if they hire a man. So it's an interesting way of trying to promote, people of not having enough in that area. I think in last year I hired a younger female on my team, and I had already decided I'm not trying to be biased here, but during the hiring process that I wanted a female on my team. I wanted to change the diversity of the team that I had in one of the countries, and I had to be very careful not to be too biased, right? Because yes, I wanted to change, I wanted to have a younger generation. I wanted to have a female, but I also wanted to have the best person. So you have to make sure you are still trying to get the right thing that you can do that maybe is the right, statistic or DEI side of thing, but also doing the right for the company. And there's a balance there. And it's very important that you respect that balance and not just you want to hire someone because you want to hire a female, but you want to hire the best person that ideally is a female and can integrate into the organization. So I think there are, the example of the quota, there are things that are happening, in just one more point. And again, back to my daughters, in Switzerland, we have there's a day of the bring your child to work day. So last year, I had my daughters come to Google for the day, and the day and they got to program and build a little robot. It was, they got home, they were super excited. So the excitement eventually wore off, but they were really into it. But the day before that, I also had one of my good friends. She's a professor at the University of Zurich, the ETH, and she's in mechanical engineering, and again, female leader in a very male-dominated world of the university. So she took our daughters, as well as another friend's daughter, to the university for the day to learn of what they do in engineering. And one of the classes, of course, it's exciting. They get to make the engineers all make new skis with new capabilities, new technology inside. So in Switzerland, everyone loves to ski. So they had 2 days in a row of seeing engineering and seeing the potential of what it can bring. And I think that's starting at a very young age, a very important thing of seeing the capabilities of what jobs are out there and what people are. So I think starting early with the bring your child to work day is also very important to show them what the life of the technology area could be. Danny, over to you.
Well, first one, I couldn't agree more with you. And I just want to mention something before. I really appreciate this idea you have, Christina, about giving children the opportunity to see other stuff. Because I felt in the environment I grew up, there were a really strong stereotype about what are, for example, girls or boys toys, because I don't think toys have gender, to be honest. And we should allow kids to play with whatever they want. But I think this kind of stuff sometimes make a difference in how we develop our mindset and how we think, what are my role model and what I can think I can do and I can. So I think it should start really, really earlier. Okay. Now I lost myself a little bit. Luke, can you talk again? What was the last question, please?
Yeah, no, of course. So it was more. Oh, now I've lost it.
What's being done?
Yes. So what?
Oh yes, progress. yes. I think things changed a lot. Changed a lot. Really. I don't think we are really good right now. I think there's a lot to improve. But it's also about the thing that I mentioned before. If I look to the environment today, it looks really easy for me, because if you compare how was the field 20 years ago and how it's today, there's a huge difference. But it's not something, it's easier to see this difference when you look from today's perspective. But when you are working hard on making things change from day to the other, nothing changed. At least we can't realize that they are changed, but they are. And one thing that I was thinking about it is, for example, 20 years ago, I can't remember of a single company that were talking about diversity. I can't remember a single recruiter that talk about diversity, no matter the underrepresented group we are talking about. And now we have this perspective. Companies are talking about it. Companies have initiatives about it. We actually can decide if we want to join a company that focus on it or not. I start there are no options. You need to start somewhere, and okay, no matter if you are a woman or if you were a man, the companies are there, and it's different when you think about equity and opportunities, how opportunities are there. So I agree with Christina too when she mentioned that we should hire the best person for the best position. But I also think that we should provide opportunities. This is the reason, because I think that positions where we can give people the opportunity to learn and they can have this experience. I try to focus more on behavior. I try to focus more on hiring someone that's really engaged, that wants to learn a lot, that is open to make things change. Because I know that one person with this mindset, one person that really wants to learn and to change things and to bring value to the business, I know that these kind of things are difficult to build than just learning a language, a programming language. Hard skills, you just need to put on effort, study a book, learn something, read something, and then you get there. But soft skills, engagement, commitment, mindset, this is hard to develop. And this is more about, for me, if a person is really good or not. And so when I think about hiring someone, I really like to think about this stuff. And I feel that, yeah, so if we don't give people opportunity, we will never have them there. This is basically how things work. If we don't open the field for new people, for for people that are in this kind of group, how they can join, how they can learn, how they can have experience if we don't open the field for them. And that's the point. Today we talk about it. Today we are here talking about it. It didn't happen 20 years ago. I never had the opportunity to join a call and listen to other women that were successful in their career and think, oh, maybe I can be that someday. Maybe I can do it. Maybe I can be this person in my future. We didn't have that. It's something that changed. And I'm glad that it changed.
Yeah, I agree with you on the on what skills are important to hire. I think I do think they've changed. I think this person's an amazing programmer or amazing whatever the skill is, but they sit in a room and they can't talk to anybody and they can't collaborate. I don't think that works anymore, right? Because even the way you develop nowadays has changed, right? Even how you work in teams and Scrum. I mean, so if you're in the STEM, if you're in management roles or whatever, or sales roles, it is that those soft skills that are critical. And I actually think, I'm not trying to be biased in the other way, but that's probably easy for women, and it's hard for some men to actually have those soft skills. So take advantage of it is probably the benefit as well, right? Build it. But I completely agree with you. Finding those, it's not just about the core capability that person has to do for that job. It's a whole rounded individual.
100%. Just going back to something that you said, Christina, on something I really liked as well is the bring your kids to school or to work day. I thought that is a great incentive to introduce people or women, boys as well, into STEM. And one thing that I always question, because I do think it starts from the beginning, so schools. Is there anything like sort of bringing your kids to work that will help reduce the stigma of it being so male dominated? And so it's pretty much, I always look at tech and I think it's still got the stigma around it being a boys' club. Do you think so? In terms of education wise, is there anything that we can do to sort of reduce that?
It's interesting because I think there's that's a journey too, right? I don't think we're there yet, and I'll give a couple just points here again in my local world that I live in. But what excites girls versus boys? If you think about the toys, you brought up the toys, right? So boys like to destroy stuff somehow and then build it together, and girls like to solve and build things, right? So it's kind of meeting them on how they like to do things. And I don't think we're there yet, but I think we have to also embrace the aspect of, what way is comfortable of how people learn. Now, you should say it should be the same, but it's probably not the same. It's, not even a gender thing. People just do different things, but meeting them on their journey of education versus making the rigidity of this is how it has to be. And I guess it's a negative example, but yesterday I was at my daughter's school. They had a Roman Empire Day. So they've been studying the Roman Empire. I think we all studied that, when we were children as well. And so they all played in a role, and so it was a live museum, as they called it. And you would attack the child, and they would explain who they are in the role. And so they had different areas. They had the thermal baths, they had, the schools, they had, the gladiators, they had different professions. And I was very upset because the professions were based on how they were, back in the BC, back in the Roman Empire days. So all the gladiators, of course, were all boys. All the teachers were girls. The thermal bath, the ones that operated them were girls. The ones that did the massages were boys, right? So it was what it was back 2,000 years ago. And I kind of said, why did they do that? Because they've just instilled in those children's heads, this is how it should be. The boys should be the gladiators. And I made a comment and someone said, well, they had to represent the world of their time. I said, no, they shouldn't have done that. It was wrong because it gives a stigma again of that's how it was, that's how it should be. And that's something that can be easily addressed in the education system and with the teachers, but they're not thinking that way. So I think part of it is, how do you influence how the teachers are thinking about bringing on, education topics, right? And so maybe how the education of the teachers being educated, right, has to change as well. Long story, but that's kind of, it's not a negative, but we're getting to the root cause of the problem, and I think addressing the root cause is needs to be a focus area. Sorry for rambling on that.
No worries at all. So I always think, as sort of a male in sort of the field, we have quite a big sort of like not stigma, but we can have sort of a big impact on this as well. For example, like Danny, your colleague with the book situation, putting that into the chat. What do you feel the role that men can have in sort of pushing this forward as well?
Yeah, I think if we look into the world, how it is, there are women, there are men, there are different people always. It doesn't matter. We are in a group. We often felt inside small groups based on race, gender, and so on. But everyone's on this together. Everyone is in the same stuff. We share the same world. And so I think we should care about it as a group. We should talk about this stuff. I think there are a lot of things that men can do. I think the first one is be open to listen. Because if you are open to listen, at least you can reflect about that. At least you can maybe understand at some point that something is happening outside my little bubble and I couldn't see it before. But there are people outside that's facing a lot of challenges that I never faced because I have this privilege. I'm in this privileged position. And when we realize and when we start to understand how we are in this world and where exactly we are, we start to think about others. And I think we can start in the education of our children, telling boys that, hey, the world is more than your little bubble. There are other people outside. Those things happen. You should take care of all things. You don't need to focus just on be a gladiator. You need to focus also in being other stuff because you need some skills to have your house, to have your life. You need to, I don't know, how to organize your clothes. You need to do this thing not because it's a girl responsibility, but it's a personal responsibility. It's not up to women to take care of house working regarding stuff. I think it's a shared responsibility. I think it's about being conscious about what's happening. And for me, the first point is empathy. I think men can advocate and talk about the subject. but I think there are two things that we need to make clear. First, men should never take the woman place for saying things. We should have our space. But if you as a man realize that something's happening, and it doesn't feel right, and you realize that that woman is not feeling comfortable to say something, support her. Talk, or at least ask her if she needs something, if she needs some help. I can give you an example that I think it will be easier to understand. A lot of time, I think the past probably 5-7 years, I was really happy to have good colleagues, male colleagues, that every time someone told something, like, I will give a little bit more context. I worked for a consultant company before, and of course, in the company was amazing. People were pretty aligned, but sometimes customers aren't. And we went to a lot of customers, and sometimes I was in a meeting, I said a lot of stuff, and then I realized I was just ignored. And the customer asked my colleague on my side what he thinks. And my colleagues always say something, as Danny said, da. It happens. As Danny said, is this way that's working? Because if they do that, I will be left outside the conversation, because the conversation will happen only between men in this kind of situation, and I will not be involved. And I faced it a lot of times when I was the tech lead, for example. I should be the person responsible for the technical decisions, but the customer doesn't want to listen to me. They prefer to listen to the man in my side. And this is the small stuff they can do. Another behavior that I saw people told me a lot of times is that when we are having small talks, whatever, doesn't matter, but it's happening just between the guys, a group of men talking about something, very often they talk about colleagues, women at work, or things like that. If she's good, if she's not, or sometimes they talk about stuff that they shouldn't talk about. And a lot of male colleagues talk to me about that, what I can do in those situations. And I told them, well, what do you think you can do in this situation? Do you agree with it? And they answered, no, of course not. I don't agree with it. It's wrong. So why you don't tell them that's wrong? Why you are just listen to the things you don't agree and let them talk about it? Because sometimes I realize that some men are more accept some stuff from other men better than from women. And then if a man tell them it's wrong, you shouldn't do that, you should say it because this of this and those reasons, maybe they will reflect a little bit more, or at least they will feel not too comfortable in saying things that they shouldn't say and judge people that they shouldn't judge. So those are small examples about what things that men can do. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've pointed out, Danny. And I think there is and maybe we're seeing more men stepping up and communicating and feeling that, I mean, like yourself, Luke, the importance of maybe being gender relevant and supporting women as much as men in there. So I think that again is a journey, it's an education, but it does need to start early. And I have fears in some places around the world, it's still not starting at the age, right? Because you're kind of groomed into that at a young age, and you have to change that sort of bias. So, yeah, I think supporting, not letting people talk badly, keeping that, and letting women, this is why I go back to the I am remarkable, letting women or other individuals be themselves and accepting who they are and not trying them to fit into what they should be, right? What they're expected to be because they're part of this team. So I think that's, very important, the letting people be authentic and feeling comfortable about being authentic in their own area. It's, there's no quick fix to this. It's something that just needs to continue and move forward, especially in countries where we're well established. I mean, there's challenges in some areas of the world that are it's even worse, right? But there's work to be done.
I totally agree. There's a lot of work to be done. One thing that I think, last couple of questions that I have for both of you really is just based on sort of advice. So one is pretty much, what would you say is the best career advice you've ever received? And then looking back sort of to the start, is there any advice you'd give yourself now?
I'll go. I'll go this time. So the best career advice I got, it was interesting actually. It was my boss at the time, which was Mel. We had a review of, a yearly or maybe it was quarterly review of my performance, right? And everything was very positive. I was doing very, very well. But he called out something that in IBM it was called derailment factors. And he gave me this warning that, and I was about maybe a year into this team, and it was again very heavily male dominated, majority older men, coming from a very different background than myself. So I came from a consulting background. Most of these gentlemen came from a sales background, and it was basically seeing signs that I was rude, I was arrogant, I was not respectful, and he wanted to give as my career was going, and I was becoming, soon after I became an executive at IBM, to make sure that I see other people and I respect the other individuals. And that, I mean, I was floored. I did not see this coming at all. And it really made me think individually, how do I want to be seen, and how should I be seeing people? Again, gender irrelevant for that matter. And I think that was probably, one of the best. It came at the right time that allowed me to adjust the way that I was being perceived the right way. So I think that really helped me on stuff. So that was probably the best advice I got, and it really helped me in my career going forward. If I would look back at myself and say, okay, you're out of university, what would I tell myself? I probably wouldn't change anything that I've done in my career and my life, for that matter. I think you have to feel confident, and I'm sorry, this camera keeps turning off. I think there's some technology that's underrunning it, taking the performance of my Wi-Fi. But I think, I think I would tell myself to do what you want to do. Be confident of what you can go forward, and where you don't have something, learn. And that's kind of what I've done. And I didn't go into my different steps in my career, but being able to pivot in your career where it makes sense to pivot, when to pivot, learning new skills, taking the challenge. I mean, moving to a country where I knew nobody when you're 24 years old, and taking different career moves. But I would probably just tell myself to, the world's the limit. There's no limit, right? And I don't see myself changing where, how I've gotten to where I've gotten to on stuff. But always be confident and continue to learn and go forward. Danny, over to you.
Yeah, I think the greatest advice I received in my career was, listen. You should listen more and talk less. I think it was like a changing mind, even more when I switched to leadership positions, because when we are leading people, we need to make sure that they are in a safe environment, and we need to make sure that they feel comfortable in sharing everything, because I really believe that trust is essential for success. And it was really interesting because I started to be the last person to talk. I just stopped. And it's interesting because people later on gave me feedback like, I really like how you allow everyone to talk, even if you are the tech lead, even if you are the person that maybe is responsible for the decision. But I really like that you give us the space and you listen to us, and you can and we can talk about it and decide it together. So I think it was really, really important for my development to have this small feedback and understand, okay, probably I need to listen more instead of talking too much. And for myself, if I could tell something to me, to my old me, I would tell Danny, don't be nice with yourself. You don't need to put this bar too high. You can be gentle with yourself. You don't need to be the best one or accomplish everything to feel that you are good. You're already good. You're as good with you already have. And no matter what people think, what matters is how you feel with yourself, what you have inside you, and how confident you are about it. I think when we change the mindset, when we change the focus to us instead of them, no matter who are them, I think we can see a better perspective for ourselves. I think we can improve things. I feel the same that Christina said. I wouldn't change anything in my entire journey. Anything. I think all the challenges I faced, all the things I learned, all the wrong decisions that I made, everything is part of what I am today. And I wouldn't change this person. I'm really proud of this person. And I want to know that my young self knew that. You should be proud of yourself every day in your life. You should care about yourself every day in your life. And you should do what is best for you. And you should pick the opportunities you want to pick. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. If you are happy, you are happy. And that's probably the thing I would say to myself.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Look, I really appreciate you both taking the time to sort of sit here and have a chat with me, really, about sort of your careers, how it started, and the things we can improve on. Is there anything you'd like to add to it?
I think we've covered a lot in the area. I think, for individuals who are listening to this, if you're early in your career, just keep on going. There are, drive what you want to do, be confident in what you're doing, and make what you want, as you said, Danny, very well, that you are happy with what means success for you as an individual. And as female leaders, I think we all have to continue to influence the society to change for that next generation and the next generation. It's just going to continue on, and we can't give up on it.